You are always held with unconditional love. When you look up at the moon and stars, you can feel your soul's connection to the entire universe and all its beings. It's possible to make every decision with your mind, body, and spirit in total alignment and wholeness. I'm Divinely Jennifer, translating astrology and health in ways you've never experienced before so that you can choose the path that is right for you. And this is the Juicy Astrology for the new moon in Sagittarius, total solar eclipse on December 3rd, 2021. Welcome. Beauties, welcome to the Juicy Astrology for the new moon in Sagittarius, total solar eclipse. I'm Divinely Jennifer, astrologer, nurse, naturopath, and mama love warrior. I had such loving intentions to get this video out to you earlier in the week. I have a good excuse, besides Neptune stationing direct and putting me in a state of perpetual dreaming and general lack of concentration. One of my best friends is a physician, a really beautiful soul who can transform lives by the healing touch of her miraculous hands. She strongly recommended that I read a book that has just come out. I had been hesitant to read it because I know that I can get stuck energetically in the black holes of conventional healthcare and the ways the pharmaceutical companies have fully corrupted and infiltrated an already troubled system, including most published research. But I decided to give the book a try. Oh my gosh, it is intense. It is one of those thrillers that's based on a lead character who is so sociopathic and diabolical that you can't put it down and you have to keep on reading. Where you can't believe a person, in fact, multiple people, could be so utterly evil in their quest for power and wealth, and how countless others could be so gullible and easily manipulated in their fear. Like I said, there's a part of me that I just didn't want to go there. I didn't want to read it. I don't want to be in the shadows. And yet, this new moon in Sagittarius, total solar eclipse, is the perfect time to read a book like this. A time when a decades-long shadow that has been cast over the scientific and medical community in their fear and complacence, potentially resulting in the deaths of millions of people, is ultimately eclipsed by the light of knowledge and truth. And that truth, the truth of the new earth, shall set us free. This new moon and total solar eclipse in Sagittarius ask us to go there, go into the shadows we became so acquainted with during the Scorpio lunar cycle, and turn dark into light, or transform coal into diamonds, as my honey likes to say. This eclipse asks us to release old dogma, old beliefs around what's true and what's not. This eclipse encourages us to shed away those old wounds and paradigms that drape us in shame and guilt so that we can create a new reality. With our diligence, our vision, our sense of adventure, and our innate optimism, we can step into the new earth that is waiting for us. And if you're wondering what the title of the book is, I'll tell you towards the end of the video. The new moon in Sagittarius, a total solar eclipse, happens at 12 degrees, 22 minutes of Sagittarius at 11:43 p.m. on December 3rd, 2021, for those in Pacific Standard Time, and on December 4th for everyone eastward. This new moon happens right on the U.S. ascendant, which is 12 degrees, 21 minutes Sagittarius. I'll talk more about what that might mean for all of us in just a bit. Sagittarius signifies optimism and adventure, heaven and earth, and truth and spirit. It's learning that leads to higher consciousness. It lies within the Milky Way and includes two potent points in the sky, something called the Great Attractor at 14 degrees, 2 minutes of Sagittarius, and the Galactic Center between 26 and 27 degrees. I only recently heard of the Great Attractor, but apparently all universes are slowly but surely being drawn towards it. It is magnetic in all senses of the word. Given its proximity to the new moon and total eclipse, I feel it is a great repository for all of our old crap that we want to get rid of with this new moon. Given also that this new moon is within 13 degrees of the south lunar node, which is at 1 degrees 44 minutes of Sagittarius, this is not a new moon to be manifesting your dreams, given that the eclipse could cast a shadow on that manifestation. I know that goes against what other astrologers might say, but I learned this lesson the hard way a few years ago. Oh my gosh, did I learn the hard lesson? The galactic center is the rational, or rather the rotational center of the Milky Way galaxy, and it's a black hole. The full moon on December 18th will happen at 27 degrees, 28 minutes of Gemini, with the sun very close to the galactic center. So I really think of this entire lunar cycle as one of release. Release the beliefs, release the stories and the wounds and the shame and the guilt and the fear and the paradigms, and make space for what will come over the next several weeks, months, and years, which, spoiler alert, is love, love, and more love. Woohoo! Who can say no to love? Well, okay, there are some people who can say to love, but I know if you're listening to this video, you are definitely a yes to love person. Otherwise, the thing is, we can get stuck in the black holes of fear and fanaticism, which obscure the view of the new earth from our field of vision. We also have to be cautious in Sagittarius. Now, that's an oxymoron, to be cautious in Sagittarius. But we have to be cautious not to get lost in the seeking, because the loving truth always lies within us. Sagittarius sometimes wants us to learn more and learn more and learn more. But honestly, the truth is always within. Likewise, Sagittarius is a mutable sign. I think of it as the closer. It's flexible and changeable. Ruled by Jupiter, the planet of generosity and expansion, it's willing to go the extra mile, either for the sake of adventure, to gain more freedom, or to put a smile on someone's face. This new moon is also conjunct the goddess Vesta, who is at 9 degrees 35 minutes of Sagittarius. Vesta is the goddess of home, health, hearth, and the harvest. She's the midwife and the godmother. I got a pretty clear download on my walk this morning that for this new moon and for the months ahead, Vesta represents white buffalo calf woman. White buffalo calf woman came to the Sioux people of the Great Plains many eons ago with a message from Wakan Tonka, or the Great Spirit. She prophesied the world as it is today and was also a harbinger of peace and reconciliation. Her return and the return of the white buffalo will herald the new earth, a new era of peace, love, harmony, and prosperity. White buffalo calf woman also brought 7 important initiations to the Sioux, including that of the Chonunpa, the prayer pipe, which connects us to both Mother Earth, the feminine, and to the Great Spirit, the masculine, similarly to how Sagittarius connects heaven and earth. I believe that white buffalo calf woman, Vesta in this astrological chart for the new moon, is here to bring us peace, to help us release and reconcile the ugly truths of the past and step forward into the new earth, a new paradigm of unconditional love for all beings, most especially for our beloved Mother Earth. Vesta's presence in the chart will take on even greater meaning when Venus stations direct on January 29, 2022. Her retrograde begins on December 19th. Venus is in her retrograde shadow right now. This is represented by the Ghislaine Maxwell trial currently happening in the US. Maxwell is accused of being Jeffrey Epstein's number 2, as she recruited countless young women into sexual assault, sex slavery, and sex trafficking. Epstein, who supposedly hung himself in jail, was affiliated with a lot of powerful people, including Prince Andrew, former President Bill Clinton, and billionaire Bill Gates. Her trial and likely conviction, serves as some vindication for the feminine innocence that was taken away from these young women and girls, many of whom were in their teens when approached by Maxwell. Because this is a Sagittarius lunar cycle, there will be a lot more court cases being decided in the coming weeks. More on Venus in the next Juicy Astrology. Vesta is the divine feminine in all her forms. She initiates us into higher realms of thinking, meaning coming together through love in our hearts and spirits instead of our logic-based minds, and helps us to bridge earth and heaven, awakening to the new earth. Vesta will also be keeping Mercury, who is at 15 degrees of Sagittarius, on his toes with this new moon. Normally, Mercury in Sag is a big talker with big plans and big philosophies. He can be dogmatic or even fanatical. Anthony Fauci has Mercury in Sagittarius. He'd rather die on a sharp sword of lies than admit when he's wrong. He was also born with a grand trine in fire, with Pluto in Leo, Venus and Ceres conjunct in Sagittarius, and Eris in Aries. I don't envy his karma with the way he has wounded the feminine. Just ask all the mothers of vaccine-injured children, since he has been the principal figure blocking any and all government-funded safety studies for vaccines since the early 1980s. And by the way, the book I'm reading is The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It is a must-read for anyone who, well, for anyone. It's a must-read for anyone who lives on planet Earth. So, with Vesta close by to Mercury, Mercury should be mindful not to say too much, lest he get himself in trouble from his lies in the future. Intuitively, I think this is why Kamala Harris, the vice president in the USA under Biden, is losing both her communications director and also her chief spokesperson at the end of the month. Harris has been relegated to the shadows. She's being eclipsed, and those women who are in charge of her communication are done being part of it. That's my intuition. As they say, hell hath no fury. And with Pluto still energetically square to Eris, there is plenty of fury to go around. As we experienced in California when she was Attorney General here, Harris can be ruthless with a smile on her face when it comes to climbing the political ladder. And in fact, she was Attorney General when California passed one of the strictest vaccine laws in the country, which then led to the strictest law a few years later, foreshadowing the restrictions we now face nationally and have faced for the last 2 years. However, she's also had to backtrack, i.e., be a hypocrite, on statements she made during the 2020 campaign. The question is, will her conscience ultimately get the best of her? Can she step into her gifts as a leader, not someone greedy for wealth and power, but for the future and the love of a nation? Only time will tell, but if I were the Democrats in Washington, D.C., I would be very, very mindful not to silence or relegate Harris to the sidelines, lest she decide to set herself free and speak the truth. While we're on the topic of the United States, let's take a look at how this chart relates to the U.S. natal chart. What's happening in the U.S. is relevant to what is happening in the rest of the world, and what's happening in the rest of the world impacts the United States. As I mentioned, this new moon falls right on the ascendant for the United States natal chart. Here in the US, many people have released any old beliefs which maintain that the US is a democracy, as we were taught in school. The government is actually run by what President Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex. They're running it from behind the scenes. Just ask anyone who has served in the US military or in the federal government. And when I was working for the VA, I certainly saw this in my tenure there. But, and this is a truly important but, There is an awakening happening where people both in and out of the government are saying, no, we want to go back to the true intentions of the Constitution, except where all people are given those rights and freedoms, and not just white male landowners, as the Constitution writers originally decreed. This is happening not only in the United States, but in countries like Australia, Germany, Austria, New Zealand, and Italy. Historically, it's also important to note that Pluto, the planet of wealth, power, transformation, and death, was at 12 degrees 22 minutes, the same degree and minute of this new moon in November of 2000, when Bush versus Gore was in full swing. If you'll recall, the election between George W. Bush and Albert Gore was hanging in the balance by a few hundred votes in Florida and a few hundred hanging chads. The election was ultimately decided by the Supreme Court of the US on December 12, 2000, when Venus and Neptune were conjunct in Aquarius and Vesta and Uranus were conjunct in Aquarius. I often wonder if 9/11 would have happened if Gore had won. He might be one of the most boring politicians on the planet, but take a good look in his eyes. There may be a Pleiadian hiding in there. Maybe. This new moon highlights, I'm serious, look in his eyes. He's got that Pleiadian look. All right. This new moon highlights the big identity crisis within the United States that's been building for years, especially around beliefs and ideals. Blue versus red, mandate versus no mandate, passports versus no passports, mask versus no mask, fear versus freedom, lies versus truth. The ascendant and first house represent the I am. Because this is an eclipse, what happens now will reverberate for the next several months. And it's even bigger because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Jupiter expands whatever energy we're working with. So if we're working with love, Jupiter expands the love. Working with generosity and abundance, Jupiter expands the generosity and abundance. We're working with fear, Jupiter will expand the fear. A few closing thoughts on this new moon. I want to go back to the loving messages of White Buffalo Calfwoman for a moment. You don't have to carry the wounds of global karma and carnage, not of this century or centuries past. No matter what you have experienced in this life or past lives, you are not a victim. Let that shit go. Those burdens are not yours to carry. No matter what anyone else has told you, or however you may have felt relegated to the shadows, I see you. You are a love-filled, light-filled, gorgeous human being here to bring your gifts to the world, no matter how scary that may feel at times. And trust me, I know how scary that can be. And then I get a message or an email or a comment from one of you shining your light right on my heart. You are so beautiful. Your light is so beautiful, no matter what you have been through. Release the wounds and pain back into Mother Earth. She will carry it for you, as she has done for eons, with unconditional love. You don't have to sacrifice your physical body or the earth or your gifts, no matter what people in the government or positions of so-called authority might say. You are here for a reason. Your gifts are unique to you, and we need you. We can inspire so much healing in the world when we shine our light and work in service towards new paradigms and beliefs based on love, and more love. For those of you experiencing a crisis of faith, Mother Earth is always there to help you tap into your truth. You don't have to think it through logically. You may hear it listening to the song of a bird or feel it in the bark of a tree. You may sense it in your breath like a whisper. Don't compromise who you are. The new earth needs you fully with all of your quirks and gifts and light. All right, beauties, I'm feeling complete with this new moon. If your inner Sagittarius learner wants to know all the nitty gritty, juicy details about the specific astrology for this new moon and how to harness the energy of this eclipse, you can still purchase my new moon and Sagittarius webinar via my website at www.divinelyjennifer.com/webinars. Everyone who purchases the webinar gets a digital copy of their chart, complete with goddesses, and a mini reading for the new moon if you send me a message via Telegram so I can send you the audio file with the mini reading. If you're feeling like you need a full-on reading, you can book one on my website as well at www.divinelyjennifer.com. I'll be back with more juicy astrology for the rest of the Sagittarius lunar cycle and the completion of the last Gemini Sagittarius eclipse season until 2039. It's only going to get more exciting from here. You don't want to miss it. Beauty, I love you so. Thank you for joining me here. I'm Divinely Jennifer, and I'll see you the next time.